Hello everyone, it's Angela, and today we're going to be going over how we balance equations with algebra using the last problem on your pre-Thursday workshop. Now, from Jay, we learned that we balance something called the 6 method. This is where you place a 6 in front of the chemical compound with the most elements. It doesn't have to be a 6, you can do an 8 or 10, but for our examples, we're going to use a 6. Now, you do the same thing with algebra, but we have to make some slight alterations for some more difficult equations. However, let's begin. We start the same way. We place a 6 in front of a compound with the most varied elements. So right now we have two options. We have HNO3 or H2SO4. One good way to pick between the two is you want to go with the compound that looks the most complicated, and between these two, that is H2SO4, so I'll place a 6 in front of it. Next, we want to balance for compounds that have an element that appear one time and the compound has no coefficient. So if we're looking in this equation, sulfur appears only one more time and it has no coefficient, so we can balance for it. There's 6 sulfurs on the right, so there needs to be 6 on the left. But now we've run into a little bit of an issue. None of the remaining compounds follow this criteria because they all appear more than one time. This is where the algebra comes into play. And now, at this step, you will place a 6x in front of the compound that has the most elements. And so in this equation, it is HNO3, so I'll place a 6x here. And now we kind of just continue as normal, but we have to keep in mind we have an x in play. We want to balance the rest of the compounds with the same criteria. We have to have an element that appears one time, and the compound needs to have no coefficient in front of it. And so if you look, nitrogen appears only one more time in this equation, and there is no coefficient in front of this compound, so we can balance for it. There's 6x nitrogen on the left side, so there needs to be 6x on the right. And now we have one final compound, H2O. You can either balance for H or O. I'm going to choose H. Now we have 6xH on the left and 12H on the right. We need to make sure there's only 6xH's on the right, so we need to make sure that this 12H gets canceled and it adds up to 6x on this right side. So we will do 3x because the subscript makes it so that the coefficient is multiplied by that value, so it's going to be whatever the coefficient is times 2, so this is 6x. And we'll subtract 6, because 6 times 2 is 12, and it's negative, so they can cancel. All right, and then after this, what we want to do is solve for x. But you have to solve for x with an element that you haven't chosen yet. And so if we look at all the colors, we've used sulfur, we've used hydrogen, we've used nitrogen, we haven't used oxygen. So we're going to solve for x using that. So we will distribute out the coefficients, multiply them with the subscripts, and we'll have 18x. This arrow is going to turn to an equal sign. 24 plus 12x plus 3x minus 6. Now, this is a mental math problem, so you guys can just do this in your head. But how I would go about it is combining like terms with the x's, doing some addition and subtraction, and when you do that, you'll find that x equals 6. Now what we want to do is substitute this x into all of our coefficients that have an x. And so we are going to plug in and solve. So we will have 6s plus, let me rewrite that, 6s plus 36HNO3 going into 6H2SO4 plus 36NO2 plus 12H2O. And now within the coefficients, we're going to look for the greatest common factor with all these numbers and divide by that. If you look, that greatest common factor is 6. So we'll divide all of these by 6. And finally, rewrite our balanced equation that is simplified. All right, so this is our final answer, and this is how you balance equations with algebra. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching.